everyone, my name's Emma. Today we're talking about a Netflix show. Yes, very original. When it comes to choices and decisions, the ones that we make with more intention will help us create the world that we want to live in. So we talk about here on this channel, how can we take lessons from books and movies and conversations and travel and apply them into our own lives to live a life that is worthy, that we feel, of ourselves. So let's get into Bridgerton. Now, I know that there's issues with race baiting and queer baiting within the show, and there's some amazing videos about that address this. I will link them here, but I want to go a little bit further into societal expectations within the show and how the main character Daphne is forced to abide by them, and that her value as a person is only seen after her value of virtue that she can present to a husband. Whether it be a prince or a duke or whatever, there is this very clear understanding that she is only as worthy as she saves herself for this marriage. And she runs into a lot of issues because she isn't told about this world that she's stepping into, but she is told her whole life that this is the only thing she's meant for, yet she has no idea about it. And that is a very important point that I want to bring with us in this little talk. I'm going to go into 3 different main things that I took away from the show. The first one being societal expectations. The time that she lived in, women really did not have the autonomy to live in a way that they wanted to. It was, you lived for your family, you had to be married, have some kind of title in order for you to matter in society. It was about who your husband was, and that you basically were just somebody that served his needs, and whatever needs you had, they just didn't matter. Especially during this era, it is a show that covers the Regency era, and this was very true for a long time for women, and in some places in the world, this is still very valid, and that is something that is continuously needing to be talked about and needing to be addressed, and we need to look at our own history, to look at what happened during the Regency era, the Victorian era, during all these different eras about how women were treated and how that correlates to how women are treated today. And of course, there's other issues that come in with that, with, of course, race and with, of course, queerness, but the overall idea is that for so long, society has forced women to fit a certain role, and for the past 50 years, women in America have been beginning to really break out of it, and we are starting to see the issues within feminism that have occurred, the issues between different standpoints that women have had, that men have had about women, and how all of this is connected. Now, we're going to talk about societal expectations, right? We all have these expectations of ourselves, of the people in our lives, and society has expectations of us as well. But what do those expectations really entail, and what do they force us to do? Now, Daphne has to get married and continue her legacy, which is having children with someone. And having her title as a wife is the most important thing that she will ever do. But in today's society, in America, women do not feel pressured to the same extent that they used to, because there are other avenues for women to escape through. They can get an education, they can get a job, they can buy a house without having to be married. I believe that's a big part about why marriages are not as stable, or why there is a higher marriage failure rate than there ever was before, because women are not dependent on being married to men to succeed in life anymore. And women are starting to see, hey, I don't actually have to put up with this. I have my own job, I have my own career, I can take care of kids, I can do this, I no longer depend on anyone to do it. And in this society, we believe so strongly, or we're trying so strongly to hold women to those same standards that we no longer have to abide by. Within the last 50 years, women have drastically increased in the level of autonomy that they have of their own bodies. And we have seen in the past few years that autonomy tried to be taken away. But I do believe that we will prevail and no longer have that attack on us. But Society has expectations, and we no longer have to abide by them. Which brings me into the second one is, if society has these expectations and we have expectations on ourselves, how do we fit that into our lives? A lot of people blame social media for creating hate in the world, but I truly believe that it has just shown us to ourselves more explicitly. We are faced every single day with 12 different platforms that are contributing to how we communicate to others, how we communicate to ourselves as well. And if we think about what we post, who we talk to, we can see that nobody is forcing us to post anything. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of these platforms exist, but there's absolutely nobody that is forcing us to put anything on them. You don't have to post a selfie if you go somewhere. You don't have to post the food that you eat. And there goes and lies the main issue, is that a lot of expectations we perceive that we have to achieve are ones that we place on ourselves and then blame somebody else for. We need to be accountable for our own decisions and actions and understand the consequences of them. That's why intentional choices are so important, because we think about the consequences of an action. If we post something and we get a certain reaction from it, did we think about the consequences of posting something like that? And if somebody posts something without your permission, that is a very different thing, and that is not okay, and there's definitely certain ways to deal with that. But when you do have the choice to post something and you hate the reaction to it, you had the choice to not post that. And a lot of times people get an emotional payout for posting something and getting a negative reaction or getting a positive reaction. And the thing is, if we live and are dependent on the reactions of somebody else to the choices and decisions and the posts that we make and the amount of likes that we get, we're constantly living our lives at the expense and hopes of somebody else. That brings me into the last point that I want to talk about, is that our choices and decisions should not be based off of getting a reaction or not getting a reaction from someone. We should never be posting on a story or a video or anything to get the likes or to not get the likes. If we are posting, we should be providing value to ourselves and to the world. And if we create a stance where that is what we are doing, then we can actually change our own self-talk in that way. If we are just consistently providing value, if we're being hopeful, if we're being kind, if we're being grateful, that automatically changes the mood that we're in, and it changes the idea of expectation that we have towards that piece of media that we just produced. If we are posting something because we need somebody's validation for the likes, we need somebody's comments of "you're so pretty" or "that's amazing, like you did an amazing job," if we post to get that validation, we're only posting to get a value that doesn't actually matter, because you'll read it, you'll be excited for that second that it took to read it, and then the high drops down, and now you're back at zero. But if self-love is something that you generate, you don't need somebody else to give you those gifts. If love is what you want from a partner, if you write yourself the love letters, if you take yourself out on the dates, you're now changing the expectations from a romantic partner. Now you're seeing like, hey, I don't need you to fill this void I have in my life. I am whole. I don't need you for the love and the attention. I want to grow with you. I want to create more with you. And that is not the way that marriage is portrayed in this show. Daphne has very little autonomy, and she's very much dependent on a husband. She has to take care of his household, and we don't have to feel that way anymore. We don't have to feel trapped by society, because for right now, society exists in our head as something that is trying to force us into a certain belief system, but it doesn't have to, and we get to choose to take our power back. We want to post, we don't want to post. Why are we posting? What is social media meaning to us? What void is it filling? And if it's filling a void, we need to take a step back and reevaluate, why is there a void? What does this void mean? How can I fill that space that I feel like I don't have the space to exist in without somebody else validating it? You don't need somebody to tell you you're amazing or wonderful or beautiful or that you are loved. If you don't feel it yourself, it doesn't matter how many times or how many people tell you, it just will never feel true because it's something that has to be filled over and over again by someone else. But you can fill it up yourself. You can write yourself the love letters, and you are not dependent on the opinions of others. If you live by what they say, you will also be devastated when they don't say it. And that is handing your life over to somebody who just shouldn't have it. And that, my friends, is something we can no longer do. We've done it for far too long. I've done it for far too long, needing the validation of everybody, and I never had it of myself, and that is the only place that it can actually come from and be sustained. So, whether you watch Bridgerton or not, I hope you take the lessons of love exists in you, and if you expect it to come from someone else, it never will. Unless you are a whole person who is loving and caring and only adding value into this world, we'll always be taking and we will always be disappointed. So I hope you got something out of today's video. We will continue these series of talking about shows and movies and books, and I will dive a little bit more into how other books have helped me. I know we've talked about a few, and we're going to talk about a few more coming up. I really am grateful that you are here with me talking about this and adding to the conversation. We really can change the world. We can be the change that we want to see if we believe it, if we understand that to be true. And it all begins with a choice. I hope to see you soon, but until then, I hope that you have an amazing day.